Dubuque's Water and Resource Recovery Center went online in 2013. Built at a cost of $70 million, it was, at the time, the city's biggest capital improvement project. The City Council chose this option because it promised to be both more economical and more sustainable long-term. I'm Randy Gehl, and today I'm joined by Water and Resource Recovery Center Manager Jonathan Brown and Greater Dubuque Development's David Lyons to talk about the results achieved to date at the center. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, Randy, for having us.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay, Jonathan, let's start with you. Could you give our viewers a brief summary of the benefits of the new options that were incorporated into the Water and Resource Recovery Center's upgrade?
Well, one of the major driving factors for the project was converting the disposal of sludges created from the treatment process from incineration to using anaerobic digestion. And one of the main advantages of doing that is that we're able to take a material that other people are considering as a waste material, material that they're throwing away, and by using the anaerobic digestion process, generating methane, using that methane then to generate electricity and heat, we're extracting value from something that other people have been throwing away. And I think it's, in the long term, it will serve the city of Dubuque very well for both growth in population and industrial growth.
And so these upgrades began in 2011, so we started seeing some incremental improvements at that time, but the full upgrade was completed in 2013. So as we have this conversation toward the end of 2015, we now have some perspective to look at what kind of impact are we seeing, what kind of return on investment can citizens expect for this major project. So let's kind of talk about that angle for a little while. I know you're experiencing some reduced operating costs, correct?
That is correct. We've been able to reduce our purchase of electricity to the tune of about $235,000, $240,000. So not only are we saving money by generating our own electricity, but we're also saving those carbon CO2 guys from escaping into the atmosphere by buying electricity from the grid. Also, in the process of generating electricity, we're also generating heat, and we're using that in the process to keep the digesters warm and to provide baseline heating for the rest of the project. And then also, back in the day when we were using incineration for destruction of the sludge, we were purchasing about $300,000 worth of fuel oil per year. So not only are we eliminating that rather large purchase, but we're also not contributing that burning fuel oil into the atmosphere. So we're getting some good benefits all the way around on that project.
And that close to $240,000 annual savings in electricity, that's annual, correct? That's
correct.
Per year. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Now we also wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that you said you're no longer incinerating the waste, but you're creating a useful product now. Let's talk about that.
Correct. By the process that we're using for the anaerobic digestion process, we're using a high temperature, so it's a temperature-phased anaerobic digestion, not want to get too technical. But in that process, we're able to produce what's called, depending upon which state you're in, it's a Class 1 or a Class A biosolids. These biosolids have really nice amounts of very usable, slow-release total nitrogen and slow-release total phosphorus, which then is applied to agricultural land in place of using regular industrial-grade commercial-type fertilizers. So it's saving money for the farmer. It's another example where we're taking material that's previously been thrown away, and in our case was also burnt to destroy it, and turning it into something useful. So it's really, you don't want to get too cute about this, but it's the whole circle of life kind of thing where we're taking things that other people have used, we're generating value from that, and I think that's a very good thing.
And to give our viewers some context, how much of this soil amendment or this fertilizer, as most people would probably view it as fertilizer, how much of that is being created on a daily basis or weekly basis? Can you give us some context?
Yeah, we're generating a little less than 10 tons per day of material, and that's actually measured by dry weight, and so biosolids aren't dry. So we add a little extra weight on there for the water. So we're producing quite a bit of material, but in the digestion process, we're actually reducing the volume. So in the old days when we were burning it, we were burning like 4 times that amount, or 3 or 4 times that amount. I don't remember the exact number, but so by the digestion process, in the process of extracting energy from it, we're having less material that we really have to handle.
And we've had conversations about this recently, and I asked about semi-loads, and you said that's about 8 semi-loads per week.
Yeah, about 8 semi-loads per week. We operate centrifuges to remove some of the water, so it's trucking is an expensive business, and if you don't have to truck water, you don't truck water. And so we're removing some of the water, and then this material goes to a farm about 6 miles south of Dubuque, and it's used for corn that grows, soil that grows corn and soybeans.
Okay. And David, Greater Dubuque Development works with a lot of local businesses on helping them be even more successful, to expand and look for ways to improve their bottom line. So let's talk about how this project has helped some local businesses. I know you worked with a number of them, so tell us about
Sure.
how the plant helps them out.
Well, obviously, Greater Dubuque Development and the business community were very involved with the discussions about the plant's upgrade. Certainly understood the plant needed to be upgraded,
Yes.
certainly understood that the new technology provided some opportunities. There were really 3 things we were trying to work with the city and work with the business community on, and that was to understand the value of the increased water capacity and increased water quality that comes through the process. And that's very important for people to understand. It was critical to the business community that we have the water capacity and the pollution control and the water resource recovery capacity to expand in the future. And I think we're only at 60 or 65% capacity right now, so we feel very good about that. The second issue is that we want to see if we can help the community gain the value and the return on investment from the plant. I mean, from a business perspective, return on investment is important. And this was an investment by the community, a large one. We're very satisfied and we're very excited by what we're seeing. We love the concept of being able to reduce both the environmental footprint of the plant to take the concerns away from that issue. But just as importantly, or maybe more importantly for the business community, we're reducing the costs. It's great that the ability for the plant to operate on a new issue is, on a daily basis, removing the equivalent of 700 vehicles and a carbon footprint. But at the same time, it's also reducing $240,000 in expenses on electricity. It's reducing $300,000 in material purchasing that you had to do. And it's not releasing pollution into the air that, our businesses are just as concerned about as the citizens. So we're really very satisfied with the types of improvements that are being made in the return on investment. We're also excited by a third thing that we wanted to make sure happened, and that is that this type of an investment needs to be the opportunity to innovate and allow businesses to take advantage of additional opportunities they had. I'll use one example that some folks are aware of, but not very many. We have a lot of industries that produce water resources called high-strength solids. It means there's a level of fat, or there's a level of grease, or there's a level of something in the water where it can't be treated by a normal water facility. So those companies have been producing it. They have been trucking it many miles for disposal. I'm aware of several that used to truck it to Wisconsin, as far away as Madison. The new system has the capacity to turn what that would have been, which is basically 5 million gallons of waste, into a product. So the win-win here is that I've talked with several of the companies. The ability for them to take this product, and instead of trucking it 90 plus miles and dumping it, to take it to the Water Resource and Recovery Center, they've reduced their costs of handling by 60%. And at the same time, they've become a new customer of the Water Resource Recovery Center, and I think they'll generate roughly $250,000 for...
Yeah, we're on track right now for $245,000, and I think we have capacity. We can go some more. So that's really our goal. Is the 250,000, 275 would be great. So, and also we're generating extra methane. So there's a win-win on both sides there.
And I'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
We see that as a great opportunity as well in reducing costs and supporting industry. But I mean, just that bottom line issue that we can reduce industry's costs 60% whilst generating an additional $250,000 in revenue to the plant to reduce its costs for taxpayers. I mean, that's the kind of win-win we were hoping we'd see in this process.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like we're already seeing some great results, up to nearly $250,000 in additional revenue every year for the plant, and we're only operating at about 60 to 65% capacity. What kind of opportunities do you foresee for businesses to take advantage of this, these new services in the future?
Yeah, it's been exciting to watch industry now recognize that the Water Resource Recovery Center is an asset that they can build into their business planning. So as Jonathan is already seeing, there's a lot of conversations about, is there additional capacity to take more product from industry which would reduce their costs and generate additional methane? But we're also having some great conversations about, okay, so now we have another product, and that is the additional methane. There's only so much Jonathan can use in relationship to reducing his electricity costs and reducing his heat costs. I'm very comfortable with that. But now industry can start talking to Jonathan about being a partner in both the creation of that energy and its utilization. I mean, if you think about extra methane, okay, so the extra methane is making electricity, great return on investment, we wouldn't change that. Extra methane is making heat and allows you to not purchase as much natural gas. We love that. One of the things we also love, though, is now that can make additional electricity. And how do we put that into the grid? I know there's some issues with Alliant Energy and what they pay, but I think we can work through those. Or it can make additional natural gas-related products such as vehicle fuel. Great opportunity to continue to reduce local costs and give product back to the industry, which it can build into its business plan.
Okay. And David alluded to the reduced environmental impact of the new plant. Let's talk about that for a little bit, Jonathan. I know one of the things that you've talked about is the ultraviolet treatment process, ultraviolet light disinfection process. How is that reducing the environmental impact of the processes that you use at the plant?
Well, prior to the installation of the ultraviolet disinfection, we were using chlorine gas for the process of disinfection. And as we all know, chlorine gas is a highly toxic gas. Chlorine mixed with any organic material that may be left in the water produces things like trihalomethanes, which then cities downstream have to remove from their drinking water supply because those are carcinogen type of organic chemicals. And I always thought it was a little convoluted to protect the environment in one way, and by doing it, you're damaging it. It just didn't make sense to me. So when this process started for rebuilding the plant, one of my primary goals was to eliminate the use of chlorine gas and go to a more benign disinfection process. So the ultraviolet process works very well. It does use electricity, but then we have the advantage that we're generating our own electricity in many respects, and so there's not really a lot of extra added cost onto using the ultraviolet light. There are other ways to do it, which we actually looked at, was generating ozone, which also requires quite a bit of extra electricity. But you find in most municipalities across the country, they're doing upgrades. They're moving to a more benign disinfection. And I think just the fact that we're able to no longer put 1 ton of chlorine into the environment per week, I think that's a very good thing.
And Randy, it's very important for people to understand that the environmental product, which is being created by the Water Resource Recovery Center, and really is a product. It's clean air, it's clean water, it's clean environment, et cetera, is actually a business product as well. For example, as some folks know, in the last several years, there was the concern in Dubuque of what's called PM 2.5, or particulate matter. The concern is this very fine particulate matter is really bad for folks' lungs and folks with asthma, et cetera. So Dubuque, as many industrial communities were under a lot of pressure to reduce its particulate matter or run into economic issues, which means you can't expand industry or you don't get as many federal funds. Very significant issues for business. While it's part of the process, it was an important part. When the WRRC stopped burning the equivalent of, 40 tons of sludge every day, that reduced particulate matter in the air. Now, so did the capping of the landfill. So did the conversion of the coal to natural gas power plant in Dubuque. But all of those together have significantly improved Dubuque's particulate matter readings. And in our recent conversations with the Environmental Protection Agency and the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, there's no longer a concern that industry will be restricted in Dubuque because of particulate matter, because it's gone down so much. Now, we would love to be able to continue to look at the Water Resource Recovery Center and its environmental outcomes on the next challenge we have, which is ozone. And the more that methane or the more that certain gases are released in the environment, the more it creates ground level ozone. There are new rules being proposed. I don't know if they'll go into effect, but they're being proposed, so it's important for us to look at it. The WRRC, because of its advanced technology, gives business the opportunity to work with WRRC and reduce ozone levels, which, again, not only improves the environment for citizens and for all of us living in the Dubuque area, but it also removes the threat of federal restrictions on the growth of our industry.
And that brings us to another issue I was going to bring up, is the Dubuque's plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030. And I know the plant's electricity usage ties into that, correct, Jonathan?
Correct.
Okay.
And right off the top of my head, I don't know what the percentage is that we provided, but I think it was pretty significant for reaching those early goals. Because when you think about avoiding the purchase of over $240,000 worth of electricity and avoiding the burning of over $300,000 worth of fuel oil, I mean, that's year in and year out. That's a lot of avoided extra carbon dioxide being pumped into the atmosphere.
And we often compare, when we talk about a lot of the services we provide in the city of Dubuque, we compare ourselves to other cities over 50,000 within the state of Iowa. There are peer communities, I guess would be the right term. And when we look at wastewater treatment, Dubuque has one of the newer facilities in the state of those 11 cities that are over 50,000. When we look at rates, how is this project impacting residents? Our rate, and I'm going to cheat and look at my notes here, the average for Iowa cities over 50,000 is $34.30 per month for the average household. We're not talking about business customers, but the household. Our rate really is not much higher than that.
No, I think it's pretty remarkable, actually, and I think it shows good management by the city overall, that we can make a significant investment for the future, but also then still maintain reasonable rates. So we're only just a few percentage points above the state average. And through the years, as municipalities have to upgrade their facilities, they're able to take advantage of the fact that they don't have to spend a lot of money for several years, and then it catches up with them. And the same thing has happened to Dubuque. We operated our old wastewater treatment facility for a long time. There was no debt payment. So that's one of the reasons we had one of the lowest rates in the state. So now with the investment for the future, we have to repay that debt, but at the same time, our rates are, in my mind, very reasonable. I know that it comes a little bit of a sticker shock for people that are used to much lower rates, but if you look at it from a statewide perspective, and I won't even go nationwide because it's even better looking, but from a statewide perspective, we're right there in the middle of the pack, and I think it bodes well for the city for the future because of the investments that have been made. We're going to be able to keep pretty stable cap on our energy needs, and energy is a real driving force for our kind of facility. So by maintaining our digesters, maintaining our turbines to generate electricity, we're going to have a pretty a much better handle on protecting ourselves from inflated energy costs in the future.
I guess we look at this in that we understand that from a business perspective that the community is not above average. It's about average on what its water costs are. We do understand also that their water rates are supportive of industry and industry growth and how that's developed, not lost on us. But Dubuque's above average. And that I mean from a standpoint of we should be better. So that's one of the goals we have, is to continue to work with the city and the Water Resource Recovery Center and the private sector. We should be able to leverage this investment by the city to reduce the growth of water rates. So Dubuque should be able to enjoy in the future lower than average water rates and higher than average water capacity as an asset for our growth as a community. So the more we can partner with the Water Resource Recovery Center to save industry money, but to generate new dollars that can be plowed back in, that's going to help all of us. So I mean, we're understanding that Dubuque's not got above average water rates, but it should have below average water rates if we work together well.
Can you give our viewers another example of how the private sector and public sectors are working together on some of these issues?
Yeah, I'll give you one that's a pretty good example, I think. We've looked at the return on investment that was originally proposed when the investment was made back in 2010, 2011, 2012. And it's returning, it's at or above what was expected in all areas but one. And we understand what's happening and we'd like to help with that. That one area is that we anticipated that the Water Resource Recovery Center could operate at what was really above nameplate capacity, that it would excel and produce more methane and more efficiently than expected. And that is in fact happening. So even though Jonathan is able to reduce his costs by several $100,000 and his heat and electricity is going down, et cetera, because of how electricity rates are set through Alliant and how the infrastructure at the plant is set up now, he can only use so much of that. So we're still flaring, we're still burning some methane, which is not great for the environment and is certainly wasting a product. So we have active discussions right now, Randy, where the private sector is trying to anticipate, working with some experts, how it could work with the Water Resource Recovery Center and use that flared methane, the excess, and turn it into a Dubuque product. So there's a short-term issue where we would hope in the next year or two that Jonathan would be able to not only say that he's operating above capacity and better than expected, but that he's also able to say and that every piece of that excess is being turned into profits.
Okay. I want to thank you both for being on the program today. I think it's a much deeper conversation than most people think there could be about wastewater treatment, or previous generations just referred to the facility as a sewage treatment plant, right? Well, there's so much more going on there than just wastewater treatment. And to give people some context, Jonathan, how many gallons of water are treated at the plant on a daily basis?
Right around 10 million gallons a day. It varies from season to season depending upon the activities. You can think about it as 140, 150 showers a minute are coming down the pipe, or how many bathtubs full. But those kind of things are fun little things to talk about. One of the things I do always like to emphasize when I'm giving tours is that, as always, our primary responsibility is to protect public health. That's job number one. Job number two is to protect the environment. Job number three, while we're doing those first two things, why not see if we can get some good out of it? Why not see if we could take this material that other people need to get rid of, even for their business or for their home, and then produce something of value, something of value not only for the citizens and return on investment, but also in value for protecting the environment, reducing our costs, and giving us a good solid footprint for moving into the future.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you both.
Thanks, Randy.
And thank you for watching City Channel Dubuque.